The broadcast began with the familiar chime of the network's theme. Bright lights, polished floors, and a glossy American flag framed the studio as the host welcomed viewers to another special episode of American Voices Tonight. But unlike most evenings, tonight's episode carried a sharp edge, a debate that had already shaken the nation. Welcome, folks. Tonight, we tackle one of the most polarizing stories in recent memory, the host said with a tight smile. Should non-governmental flags, specifically the LGBTQ+ pride flag, be flown on federal property? With us to discuss, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Vice President J.D. Vance. The camera panned across the stage. On one side sat Jasmine Crockett, poised, calm, and resolute in a deep navy suit. Her expression was focused, her eyes already fixed on her counterpart. On the other side, J.D. Vance sat upright, wearing his signature American flag lapel pin and a look of steely determination. As the applause faded, the host turned first to Crockett. "Congresswoman, your thoughts?" Jasmine leaned slightly forward. "Let me be clear, this isn't just about a flag. It's about inclusion. That pride flag doesn't erase the American flag, it expands its meaning. It says to LGBTQ+ Americans, you belong, your service matters, your dignity is recognized. If we can't make space for that on government grounds, then what message are we really sending?" J.D. Vance was already shaking his head. The host turned to him. "Mr. Vice President, that flag," Vance began slowly, "has no place on federal property. Period. Our government should represent all people, yes, but through the United States flag. Not political symbols. Not culture war statements. We've already seen where this leads: division, identity politics, and an erosion of the shared values that bind us together." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, Mr. Vice President, the flag isn't about politics, it's about people. Real people. Americans who've been historically marginalized. Don't wrap exclusion in the guise of neutrality." Vance leaned in, voice rising slightly. "It's not exclusion to ask that federal spaces remain neutral and unified under one flag. The flag that draped my grandfather's coffin. The flag I served under. What happens when we start flying one group's flag, but not another's? Where does it end?" The tension was now unmistakable. Even the studio audience, made up of a mix of veterans, activists, and everyday voters, seemed to hold its collective breath. Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. "I think it ends when we stop pretending that representation is divisive. It ends when we recognize that unity isn't about sameness, it's about shared respect. That pride flag wasn't flown instead of the U.S. flag, it was flown alongside it. That matters." J.D. Vance paused, then responded with a statement that would later trend across social media. "You cannot fly two flags and pretend they're equal. One is a symbol of our nation, the other is a symbol of an agenda." A low murmur swept through the crowd. The host tried to intervene. "Let's keep this civil." Jasmine turned her full body toward Vance. "Then maybe the problem isn't the flag. Maybe the problem is that you see dignity as an agenda." The studio fell silent. The camera zoomed in, capturing the electricity between the two figures. Not shouting, not chaos, but a kind of raw honesty that couldn't be rehearsed. Back in control, the host took a deep breath. "Coming up after the break, can a symbol of inclusion coexist with national unity? Don't go anywhere." As the screen faded to commercial, Twitter exploded. The phrase, "you see dignity as an agenda," lit up timelines from coast to coast. Some called Crockett a hero. Others accused her of disrespecting national traditions. But one thing was clear: America was watching and feeling every word. When the show returned from commercial break, the atmosphere in the studio was noticeably tenser. The host, now sitting a little straighter in his chair, welcomed viewers back and acknowledged what had just happened. "If you're just joining us, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Vice President J.D. Vance are debating whether the pride flag should be allowed on federal property. Let's continue." But things had already moved beyond a simple policy debate. This was now about what it meant to be American, and who got to decide. J.D. Vance spoke first this time, his tone more measured but no less resolute. "Look, I'm not saying members of the LGBTQ+ community don't deserve respect. Of course they do. But federal buildings are not the place for social movements. Imagine if every group demanded their flag be flown. Veterans, immigrants, environmentalists. Where do we draw the line?" Jasmine didn't blink. "You draw the line at visibility? At recognition? That's not governance, Mr. Vice President. That's cowardice cloaked in order." We already allow military branch flags, POW-MIA flags, and even state flags to fly. This isn't about tradition, it's about who you think deserves to be seen. The audience murmured again, and the host tried to regain control. Congresswoman Crockett, some Americans feel that symbols like the pride flag are politically charged and push a social agenda. What would you say to them? Jasmine looked straight into the camera. I'd say this: if dignity feels like a threat to you, maybe you need to examine why. Visibility for one group is not a threat to another. We don't shrink the American dream by including more people in it. We strengthen it. JD leaned forward, visibly frustrated now. But when you prioritize one group's visibility, you're inherently prioritizing their values over everyone else's. That's not equality. That's favoritism disguised as progress. Jasmine turned back toward him. Progress is prioritizing those who've historically been silenced. That's the point. You don't build equity by pretending everyone started from the same place. There was a pause, a momentary hush that seemed to stretch across the studio. JD finally replied, "But what about religious Americans? They see the pride flag and feel that their values are under attack. Why don't they get the same compassion you're demanding?" Jasmine softened for a beat, then responded with striking clarity. "They do. I know many people of faith who are also proud allies. The issue isn't religion, it's exclusion. Faith should never be used to justify the silencing of others. If your beliefs require someone else to disappear, maybe it's not faith. Maybe it's fear." The audience applauded, some clapping hesitantly, others with full conviction. The host, sensing a breakthrough moment, posed a final question before the segment ended. "Is there any version of compromise here? Any place where both of you see common ground?" JD looked down, his jaw clenched. "I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in religious liberty. But I also believe that government neutrality matters. If every issue becomes a symbol war, we lose our shared identity." Jasmine nodded slowly. "I agree, shared identity matters. But shared identity without shared inclusion is just branding. If America is going to mean something to all its people, then we need to be brave enough to let everyone be seen." The host thanked both guests, signaling the closing segment was near. But even as the cameras turned away and the outro music swelled, it was clear the conversation had ignited something larger. Viewers at home were left with more questions than answers. Across the country, dinner tables lit up with the same debate. In a single hour of television, two leaders had exposed the deep ideological divide and unexpected areas of overlap on what freedom really looks like in the 21st century. As the show wrapped and the studio lights dimmed, the conversation between Jasmine Crockett and JD Vance didn't simply end. It lingered. Not just in the minds of the audience who had witnessed it live, but across a nation already stretched thin by ideological battles over identity, tradition, and freedom. Backstage, producers exchanged nervous glances. A senior journalist whispered, "We haven't seen a debate like that in years." One technician, a Marine Corps veteran in his 60s, turned to another and said, "I didn't agree with everything she said, but damn if she didn't make me think." The clip of the debate was uploaded to the network's social media platforms before the hour was over. Within minutes, Jasmine's line, "Faith should never be used to justify the silencing of others," was trending on X, formerly Twitter, shared by millions who saw in her words both defiance and compassion. JD Vance's supporters, however, rallied quickly. "He stood up for real Americans," wrote one commentator on a conservative outlet. "He refused to let the flag be politicized." In many corners of the country, his message, that the pride flag represented division rather than unity, resonated deeply. News segments across the political spectrum picked up the story. Fox News called it an attack on traditional values. MSNBC praised it as a masterclass in modern constitutional debate. Across YouTube, reaction videos and commentary flooded in. Everyone had an opinion, but few could deny the significance of what had unfolded. Yet, as the media firestorm raged on, something subtler emerged, a rare, nuanced national dialogue. In a small-town church in Alabama, a retired schoolteacher named Helen spoke about the debate during her book club. "I've never heard of Jasmine Crockett before, but she made some good points," she said. "Maybe it's not about erasing anyone, just about making space." Meanwhile, at a veterans' coffee shop in Ohio, JD Vance's home state, a group of older vets discussed the show over morning donuts. "I see what he meant," one said. "We fought under one flag. That flag should stand alone." Another added, Yeah, but if flying a little rainbow flag makes someone feel seen, what's it to me? The debate didn't change everyone's mind, but it sparked reflection. And in a country overwhelmed by noise, reflection is rare. A week later, Jasmine Crockett was invited to speak at a town hall in Detroit. The crowd, larger than expected, included Black churchgoers, LGBTQ+ youth, veterans, and suburban parents. Standing at the podium, she didn't gloat or relive the moment on air. Instead, she spoke of unity, not the shallow unity of ignoring differences, but the brave kind, where people make room for one another. Real patriotism, she said, isn't pretending we're all the same. It's acknowledging our differences and still choosing to stand together. In contrast, Vance held a press conference at a conservative leadership summit in Dallas. He reiterated his position: symbols matter. Government spaces must remain symbols of national unity, not personal ideology. But this time, his tone was less combative. I respect Congresswoman Crockett's passion, he added. And I hope we can all find a way to disagree without dehumanizing one another. Those words, simple as they were, stood out in a week of viral outrage. Some pundits dismissed them as political calculation. Others saw it as growth. What's undeniable is this: two politicians from two very different worlds had laid bare the cultural tensions that continue to shape America. And they did it not through soundbites or social media wars, but face-to-face in real time under the unrelenting eye of a live broadcast. That matters, because in a nation where so many debates are scripted, choreographed, or entirely avoided, this one was different. It was messy, passionate, imperfect, and profoundly human. In the days that followed, neither side declared victory. There were no polls measuring who won, no viral memes crowning champions. Instead, there was only the echo of two Americans wrestling with what their country means and who it must include to remain true to its promise. And perhaps in that struggle, not in agreement, but in the willingness to engage, we catch a glimpse of something deeper than policy. We glimpse democracy itself.